I have to constantly remind myself that I spent thousands of hours doing webinars. I spent tens of thousands of hours creating those webinars. I spent countless thousand hours thinking about webinars, sleeping and dreaming about webinars. How do I distill 20,000 plus hours and the total sum of my knowledge into something that you can immediately put into action and have a bottom line impact the first time that you use it? Well, here's how. We are just going to break down the formula, make it systematic, and then we remove any uncertainty or any doubt. It's kind of one of those things. Follow the formula, get the result, right? Would you like to look at and explore the ins and outs of each of these steps as we go through here? Of course. So we've discussed so far introduction and content. What's next? The transition. We're going to transition from I'm educating you to I'm making you an offer to invest in yourself. Here's the reality. The reality is successful webinars start selling the moment the first word is spoken and the first slide is shown. There is no difference between the slide number 1 and slide 101. They're all related to the sell. Only in your mind is there actually a difference between quote-unquote content and so-called pitching. As such, the transition serves to put you automatically in a state of mind where people are most receptive and eager to hear about what you have to offer. This is a selfish section, the transition is. It's a trick so you can put yourself in a state of mind where you can deliver with the most impact. I can tell you just by looking at an audio of most people's webinar where they start pitching. Right here, for example. Notice the difference in tonality. They were comfortable talking about and educating during the content, and they got uncomfortable when they started selling, and they were like a different person. Nothing will cause you to lose sales quicker than that, because if you're uncomfortable selling, they'll be uncomfortable buying. Here's how you fix that. The best transition, get your audience to feel like you're doing a favor by giving them the opportunity to invest in what you're offering to them. That's the goal of the transition. You nail the transition, and they will be begging you for the chance to spend money with you. Would you believe I have a formula for the transition? Of course, right? Once you do it as long as I do it, you make things turnkey. There's 3 elements, step by step, you have to follow for the transition. 60-second recap, yes momentum, 2 choices. If there is anything that you can just straight copy from this webinar and drop in to a presentation, it's this. Okay, so pay careful attention. First thing we do is a 60-second recap. If I went 60 minutes on a webinar, I want to redo that 60 minutes at the end before we go into the sales portion of it in 60 seconds or less. What we do here is we condense the most powerful insights into a series of bullet points that you fire off in rapid succession to dramatically show the amount of value you provided. For example, in my transition that I would do for a webinar like this, I would say, today so far we discussed a webinar framework that has been tested and perfected across 9 figures worth of sales. We also went over a magic trip that helped us generate $1.4 million the first time that we implemented it in 75 minutes or less. I also showed you how to make your webinar sell better in the first 5 minutes than most people do, and over their whole webinar. Today, so on and so on, right? I would condense whatever portion of my content I had covered up until that point into rapid fire, slide by slide. What do you think happens when you do that? You build on the momentum. First of all, you remind them of what they've taught, because a lot of people forget 90% of stuff the first time they hear it. And now you can remind them of all the value that you've given them, and remind yourself, whoa, I did a lot of this stuff? Wow, that was incredible. And now you're feeling good about continuing the conversation with them. So step number 1 in the transition is a 60-second recap. What's next? Yes momentum. Smaller yeses lead to bigger yeses. The biggest yes, of course, is yes, I will invest in your offer. In your transition, what you want to do is fire off a series of yes questions, one after the other. So here are some examples. Was our time together thus far enjoyable for you? Yes. Have you also found it to be valuable? Yes. Do you now feel more comfortable with your ability to make money with your webinars? Yes. Have you come up with some good ideas you already feel excited about implementing in your business? Yes. And is it fair to say using these techniques will give you a significant advantage over your competition? Yes, yes, yes. So we do the 60-second recap. We get them in a state of saying yes to being open and receptive. And then to cap off the transition, we use the 2 choices close. Now let me give you the context of the 2 choices close. There was a study done across a group of different doctors, and they divided it into 2 different groups. First group, this is what they said. They said, how likely would you recommend a surgery that had a 90% survival rate? And these doctors said, yeah. Most of them said, I'd have no problem offering a surgery and recommending it if it had a 90% survival rate. They took the second group of doctors. The only difference was they asked them the question this way. They said, how likely are you to recommend a surgery to a patient that has a 10% fatality rate? And now a majority of them say, I wouldn't do that. Huh. Interesting. You can get completely different responses to the same exact information, all depending on how you present it. And that's why I have painstakingly worked every single word of the two choices close to make sure people understand exactly what the best impact the information we have available. How do you set up your offer so your audience is most receptive to hearing and responding to it? Just use this script. You can use this pretty much word for word. I've used this more than any other thing that I've ever used in the transition. It goes like this. Would you like to hear it? Well, here's the two choices close. I have absolute confidence that you could take everything we covered here today and on your own go out and put it into action and get results that you previously thought were not possible. And I'm also certain that just with the information we've covered on this webinar today, left on your own with your own resources, devices, and time and effort, you can make a go at this in a way that most people will never be able to. And if that were your only option, it would be a worthy ideal to pursue. But what if there was another option? An option that allowed us to go at this together. A chance to go deeper than we can in one measly hour on one measly webinar, connecting together one measly time. What if I played an active role in your results, took a responsibility in your success, and had an obligation to your outcome? How would that make things different? If I had such an option for you, would you love to hear more about it and what it can do for you? That's why it's with great pleasure that I introduce to you whatever you're offering them. Product, service, coaching program, software, next step, doesn't matter. That's why it's with great pleasure that I introduce to you Genius Webinars, whatever the name of your product or service that you're offering there. Question to you. Do you think using a transition like this would make you more comfortable presenting your offer? Now you realize I'm doing a noble service indeed of going at it with them as opposed to on their own. Not only are you reminding the audience of what you're doing, you're reminding yourself. Because otherwise you think, oh no, I'm selling something to somebody. That is selfish. Say I'm serving somebody. And everything that we just did in that script, the two choices close, exactly reminds you both and puts you both on the same page, you and your audience. Okay, let me take a look at what you have to offer. That's where their head's going to be at. And don't you think that that's going to help you tremendously feel good about providing what you have for them to invest in, okay? You think it'd make it more eager for them to buy from you? Of course. And isn't it safe to say that most webinars don't utilize powerful transitions like that? They don't have any transition. And that's a travesty because it's mostly fill in the blanks, isn't it?